medicines that might calm people down that are naturally anxious all the time.
Yeah.
And there's also different remedies that if you have a hormonal imbalance, they can give you medicine to kind of balance your hormones.
Exactly. Good. So things like hormone replacement therapy, right? So we could think about if it's a vitamin issue, we're going to have vitamin supplements, for example. Make sure people have access to great medical treatment, like vitamin supplements. I'll write HRT, hormone replacement therapy. This is HRT, hormone replacement therapy. There might be certain psychiatric drugs, such as anxiety drugs, that might help people. And then all of these are individual sort of medical solutions, but it's based on an overall premise that society as a whole, if we're interested in stopping crime, and these are the specific treatments, society as a whole should be interested in what type of policy. Yeah, Jonathan. So these are the specific treatments, right, that we want to make sure people have access to, but overall that comes under the general umbrella of excellent health care. Which means access to things like insurance in the United States, which means access to treating doctors, okay? Making sure that access to medical care is also affordable. So you guys are doing great. This is exactly what it is. Medical treatment specifically, and then within the overall rubric of providing people with excellent health care, okay? So again, if this is the theory, and this is the cause of why people commit crime, these are the policy implications about what we could do about it, right? Okay. The second theory that I put up there is the psychological theory. Psychological criminology. Just first a step back. The biochemistry approach to thinking about crime was developed in the late 19th century. So just for your notes, it was sort of one of the earliest types of explanations and developed in the the late 19th century. Okay. Psychological criminology started at the beginning of the 20th century. And psychological criminology is based on the premise that there are perhaps psychological differences between criminals and non-criminals. That there are psychological differences between criminals and non-criminals. Okay? There are two branches of these psychological theories. There are two branches. One branch focuses on primarily on the issue of IQ. Okay? And there have been numerous studies that have compared criminals to non-criminals and given them IQ tests, right? And there is this persistent finding in the literature that criminals often have an 8-point lower IQ score than non-criminals. Okay? It's found in numerous studies. So one branch of the psychological theory emphasizes IQ differences between criminals and non-criminals and says that this IQ difference is what explains crime, because the gap might not be enough for you and me to notice. If I'm talking to you on the street, I might not notice this gap in IQ, but the gap in the IQ might make criminals a little bit more impulsive or willing to take chances than non-criminals. Okay? So the first branch looks at the gap in IQ between criminals and non-criminals. Other people who have advocated in favor of the psychological approach to criminology focus on basic psychiatric and disorders and psychological disorders. For example, that criminals are more likely to have personality disorders. like psychopaths, sociopaths, that they have other types of antisocial personalities. So again, these two sort of branches of psychological theory, one focusing on IQ, the other focusing on sort of psychological disorders, psychiatric disorders, with an emphasis on personality disorders specifically, like psychopaths, sociopaths, antisocial personalities. Okay? So again, if psychology is the theory that really explains why people commit crime, when we think about these causes more specifically, as I just mentioned, one would be like low IQ, right? And if we believe that IQ is innate, right, like you're born with it, I'm not sure how much we can do about that, but if you believe it's something that can be altered, then perhaps we could do something about it. And then also psychological problems or disorders. So if these are the causes of crime according to the psychological explanation, what are the policy implications? How do we stop crime? Yes, Erica. Excellent, excellent. So perfect. So here the primary focus would be on mental health treatment. And by mental health treatment, we might be concerned with things like screenings, right, for mental health disorders. Okay. And when I'm talking about a screening, when I was an undergraduate up at Cornell, and this was the early 1990s, so back in the day, my stepfather passed away, and he had lung cancer, and so he passed away really quickly, and I was very, very close to him. And I remember going back to school after the funeral, and I just remember kind of like walking around and feeling like everything was dark. Like I didn't see the sun, I was crying all the time, I was getting to my classes and I was doing all of my coursework, but I was crying all the time. And so I remember Cornell is a big school, but they didn't have very good mental health care facilities. And I remember I saw a doctor on a Friday, and she said, okay, I want to see you again on Monday. And so I went to see the practitioner, and she gave me a depression screening tool. So there are a couple of tools that psychiatrists use to find out if you have depression. And one of them is called the Beck Inventory. And it's basically a series of questions about things that make you feel sad. Like, how sad are you? Are you suicidal? Are you extremely sad? And I remember she gave it back to me, and she said, Jocelyn, I think you're just a little bit too sad, right? So this was the early 1990s when people really didn't talk. There was still a lot more stigma associated with mental illness. And so she didn't even say the word depressed, which is what I was. I was sleeping, I was crying all the time. She said she tried to make it, so I would take the information and not feel stigmatized by it. So she gave it back to me and she said, I see, she scored me out on this screening, the Beck Inventory of Depression score, and she said, I think you're a little bit too sad. I think what I'd like to do is I would like to prescribe something for you. It just came out on the market, and people are saying it really helps with sadness. Again, not saying depression because of stigma, but remember, this is the early 1990s. And she said, it's a drug, it's a new drug. And she gave me a prescription, and I looked at it, it was like for Prozac. Like everybody knows what Prozac is, right? But at the time, it was new. And I remember going into the pharmacist and being like so embarrassed. Like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. Like, there's something wrong with my brain. And getting the prescription filled, and the pharmacist didn't care. It's like, oh, here's the prescription. And if you know a little bit about depression, oftentimes it takes a couple of weeks for an antidepressant to start working, right? So that's what happened to me, and I remember it was almost like clockwork. 2 weeks after I started the drug, I remember I woke up one day in Ithaca, it's freezing, upstate New York's freezing, so it's freezing cold, but I opened up the blinds and I looked up and I saw the sun. I'm not gonna cry, sort of gonna cry, but I saw the sun for the first time, that I hadn't seen it in a long time. And I started to get my life back. So, I'm sorry. Screenings are just incredibly important in terms of mental health and mental health awareness. And that screening tool helped me. It helped me get out of the depression and helped me, I got better and I was able to focus on my schoolwork and I was able to go out with my friends and have a good time and drink a little. Don't write that on your teaching evaluations. Probably illegally, I was drinking. But I got my life back, right? So screenings are really, really critical in terms of mental health care and mental health illnesses. What are other, screenings, but also I think, Erica, you mentioned treatment, right? Actual treatment. So for me, in my case, like a lot of drugs can help, right? Treat things like depression, schizophrenia, anxiety, okay? All of those things are really, really important. Also, what's really important, if the psychological explanation of crime is true, therapy, right? Whether that's like weekly therapy, whether there are a whole bunch of types of therapy that is out there that can potentially help individuals, okay? And so if we have, these types of treatments, it's kind of parallel to this. What do we need, Jonathan, if we want these specific types of treatments? What did you say we need? Excellent healthcare policy that covers mental health issues. Excellent mental health care. Okay. Excellent mental health care coverage is really, really important. And I would say, just as an added note, that parity with respect to physical health care, in terms of the mental health